Right, not all wills are created equal, and what I mean by that is there's actually several types of wills. So in this video, I'm going to talk about four. The first one is probably the most common, what most people think about when we just say a will, or your friends ask, hey, have you done your will yet? Also known as a last will and testament. That's the one that, again, everyone thinks about, and that's just the basic, who gets what of my stuff, right? When I die, I want to leave my house to this person, my bank account to this person, my jewelry to this person, whatever it is. That's what most people think about. And so that's really what, when someone's saying a will, that's what most people are thinking about. The next one is what's called a pour over will, right? Same idea in that it's gonna say who gets what of your stuff. But when you have a pour over will, it generally means that you also have a trust, some sort of trust, most likely a revocable living trust, goes by a bunch of different names as well, but some sort of living trust. The reason you have that is because your trust is the document that's really going to say who gets what of your stuff. The trust is probably going to be a little bit more complex than the will, have special provisions in there, if set up properly, avoids probate, all that sort of stuff, why people like to have a trust to begin with. But the trust is going to say what happens with those things. The pour over will, you have that in case probate is necessary for whatever reason. What I often tell clients is, let's say that you sign your trust on your way home, driving home from the office, you get in an accident, you die, you didn't actually get to put any of the assets into the trust. And so now, even though you had a trust, everything's going to have to still go through probate. So you have that pour over will as kind of a catch-all, just in case it might be necessary. And so the pour over will is going to be used in probate, and what the pour over will says is do everything that my trust says. So even though we didn't get the assets into the trust to actually avoid probate, which was the goal, you still get to use the provisions in the trust. So that's why the will is going to say do what my trust says. It's kind of just insurance just in case something happens, something doesn't go into the trust and probate's necessary. The next one's a living will, which is often confused with the first one with the will. The living will is, what I call the pull the plug document. Basically, the doctors, you commonly in an accident, you're incapacitated, something's happened, you're in an end of life condition, vegetative state. Really, the only way that you can be kept alive is on life support. And so the living will is you signing that, saying, nope, don't keep me on life support. If I'm in that sort of state, and there's different guidelines as to what would constitute, a end of life situation, but essentially, don't keep me. I don't want to be kept on life support. That's what the living will is. And the last one worth mentioning is a holographic will. Most states don't allow these anymore. They're generally handwritten wills, and they're often not witnessed, and which is why a lot of times Florida, for example, won't acknowledge them because they're not witnessed. But they're, you kind of think of them, you're on your deathbed and you're like, oh, I need to write some stuff down, and you just write, handwrite on the notepad what you want to happen with your stuff. In most cases, in most instances, those are not going to be necessary. So and there's actually several other types of wills as well, but those are probably the most common one that you might hear. So whenever you're thinking about doing your estate plan, probably the first three are all going to be involved. You might do, if you're not doing a trust, you're probably just going to have a will. If you have a trust, you're probably going to do a pour over will, and in both of those cases, if it's your wish, you're probably going to have a living will as well.